Good afternoon. I'm Jeremy Riley. Today we are here with Congressman Christopher Murphy. Congressman, we'd like to thank you very much for coming down here. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule.
Well, thanks for having me.
I understand you completed your first 100 hours in Congress.
Yes.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. It's been a thrilling experience. You know, normally when a new Congress is sworn in, they swear everybody in and then Congress goes home for a few weeks. And part of the reason they do that is to let the freshmen members get some time to set up their offices and get staffed up. And this year, because of really the historic nature of the election, the decision was made to go right to work, which is exactly what I wanted to do. But it certainly makes for a challenge to get through all the logistical issues of setting up an office while you're putting forward some really aggressive legislative proposals in the first 100 hours, the first 2 weeks, essentially. So it's been a thrill. There's been a lot of pinch yourself moments, and it's nice to be back here in Connecticut for a weekend.
We certainly accomplished a lot in a few weeks. Starting off here, at what point in your life did you really decide to go into the political field?
I just grew up in a family, it wasn't a political family, but my mother and my father taught me and my brother and sister that it was really our duty to give back to the community, that we just couldn't take for granted the fact that we grew up in a household that could provide for us and give us some opportunities that other kids didn't have. And I realized pretty early on that I wasn't good enough with numbers to become a rich philanthropist, and I wasn't comfortable around blood, so I wasn't going to be a doctor. But one of the things I learned that I could do was really give a voice to some people that didn't have a voice. And so I got interested in it when I was really young. I volunteered on campaigns when I was in high school. I didn't know at that point that I wanted to run myself. But after I graduated school, I looked around. I was living in a town with an incumbent who really had kind of given up on the job and really wasn't representing the people who sent him there. And I was a real long shot, but I decided to make the race myself. And I went out and I knocked on every door in my district twice, sometimes 3 times, and ended up winning that race and have won a few since. So I've been interested since I was young, and really it's just that I've always felt that I had an obligation to give something back, and this is the way that I can do it.
Moving on here, of all the political positions, why congressman?
Yeah, I tell you, I've been in the state legislature for 8 years, and I've loved the work that I've done there. I mean, you really can do some great work in Hartford, but I started watching a lot of the issues that I felt most passionate about: healthcare issues, environmental issues, this war. And I realized that the fights that really mattered were in Washington. They weren't in the State House anymore. And if we really wanted to protect our rivers and our air, if we really wanted to do something about healthcare, and quite frankly, if I wanted to have a voice on ending this just backwards and destructive war, I had to be in Washington. And so again, it was another long shot race, but it was the important fight for me to take on for the issues that I care about.
Well, why should high school age people like myself be real interested in politics?
Well, listen, just because high school students, the majority of them, can't vote doesn't mean that everything we're doing right now in Washington doesn't mean that doesn't affect young people. I mean, I got involved when I was 16 years old because I looked around, to the world that I lived in and realized that if I didn't have a voice, the clean air and the clean water that I took for granted wasn't going to be there when I was older. That some of the healthcare systems that we take for granted simply wouldn't be around, like Medicare, when I got old enough to use it. So I think for high school kids, if they don't take an active role now, this sort of society and world that we sort of assume will be there for us later on isn't going to be there. I'll give you a perfect example. This war that we're fighting, you can say as a high school student, doesn't have to do with me, but it does have to do with you, because the amount of money that we're spending on this war, $25 million a day, that's money that somebody's got to pay back someday. We're borrowing it all. We're borrowing it all from China and European banks, and guess who's going to have to pay it back? Kids that are in high school right now, when you're paying taxes, when you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s, you're going to be paying back all of the loans that we took out to fight this war. That means that your taxes are going to be exponentially higher because of what we're doing right now. So even beyond the problems, I think, from a moral standpoint with this war, the financial considerations for young people are devastating, and I think that's why one of the reasons why high school students should be standing up and having something to say.
I agree. Do you feel that many politicians target high school population with their messages, even though the majority of us cannot vote?
No. It's a self-fulfilling problem in that in order to get elected, candidates have a limited amount of resources to talk to voters. And so, what do? First, they only target their message towards the voting age population. And then, even worse, they end up targeting their message only to the people that have a history of voting. Right. So, mailings, for instance, often don't go to households that haven't had a person in that house that's voted in the last 4 years. So, what it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you only talk to people in campaigns that have a history of voting, then you don't give any reason for people that haven't had a history of voting to vote. Same thing goes for young people. If you don't speak to young people in the course of a political campaign, what reason do you have to give them to vote once they do turn 18? So I spent a lot of my campaign for Congress going around speaking to high school groups, and some people on my campaign said, "Chris, you're crazy. You should. Why are you going into high school? They can't vote for you. You're in a tight race." But to me, that's an ongoing obligation that every politician should have, is to keep that conversation going with young kids. It's why I got interested in politics, because there were people that came to speak to me and my high school class, and I want to do that as well.
That's good. What are some of the more youth-oriented initiatives that the administration of Congress is trying to pass?
Well, again, the student loan interest rate decrease is incredibly important to students, and we need to rally students around that initiative. It's passed the House, but we need it to pass the Senate, and we need the President to sign it. And then we've got to have a collective conversation, and this is students, Congress people, teachers, parents, about No Child Left Behind. As we know, this has been a tremendous burden on schools. Students, instead of doing creative learning and critical thinking, are now just taking tests and being taught to take tests. And we've really sucked a lot of the life and creativity out of education. And so that bill is up for reauthorization this year, the No Child Left Behind Act. And too often the people that have input in the rewriting of those laws are policy experts and teachers and educators and principals. Well, guess what? The people that are best able to talk about the effects of No Child Left Behind are students. And not just high school students, but we should be talking with middle school students, and we should frankly be listening even to elementary school students about what they think about going to school and just being taught how to take a certain test. And that's going to be a major initiative of mine, is trying to reach out to students about that law for the next year.
Good. Now, although, again, we can't vote, what can we do to really make a difference?
Well, speak up. Speak up, and don't assume that just because you as a student aren't 18 years old that you don't have a right to call and email your member of Congress. Don't think that because you're not 18 yet you can't organize students around a particular issue. Why did I win when I was 24 years old? I won a state representative seat right out of college, and nobody gave me a shot. Because as a young person, I had two particular advantages. One, people took me for granted. People didn't expect that I was going to do certain things. People certainly underestimated my ability as a voice. But maybe more important, as a young person, you get more attention than other people do when you speak up on issues. And that's critical. I mean, because people aren't used to hearing high school students talk about education policy, student aid funding, or the war in Iraq, when you do speak individually or as a group, you're going to get more attention from the press, from Congress people, from other politicians. And so I would just really encourage students to have that voice, to make it loud and clear in as many ways as you can, because you're going to find more often than not that more people are going to pay attention to you, because unfortunately it's become an anomaly for young people to really speak out, then other people may get attention.
On behalf of the Milford Youth Agency Video Project, we'd like to thank you for watching. I'll see you next month.